think I figured out my technical difficulties, which it wasn't a technical difficulty. It was I think it was I forgot to pay my internet bill. So of course, I think they were throttling back the speed until I paid it. So between that and I'm also one those people that always have like a bunch of tabs open too. So that pretty much could have been it as well. But it's been a while since I've done that podcast. You know, and again, this is supposed to be about I would say 2 times a week, but you know, I was doing some projects and got those taken care of, and then just waiting for really nothing. I was just being a little bit lazy for a couple times that I missed doing it. But you know, I did my other cast with the music and shit. But let's see. I'm just trying to reset everything up. Usually, I use the music as a pretense, but you know, set up like to share the stream URL and shit. But you know, being not gonna replay the fucking whole music intro and shit like that. I'll put it all together when I re-upload it, but right now I'm not gonna redo the whole fucking thing. But anyway, so I do have some. I would say this discussion is gonna be very off the wall, macabre, gory. Even I even go that far, but you know, going over different conspiracy theories and different things that are going on now. This one kind of, yeah, kind of. I mean, again, I'm just resetting everything up. So, okay, so as far as the topic is movies that, especially movies, the older movies that, and these are conspiracy movies. These are things that are actually playing out in real life. So the whole idea of what influences what, does the movies influence culture or does culture influence movies? And through all these different discussions I have every week, starting from today, I'm going back on normal schedule, which again is Monday and Thursday. But through these discussions, you know, you'll be able to sort of see the parallels between what we see in these movies, and I believe, based off the time frame that these movies come out and how we see things are playing out now, that I believe that it's more of not so much cu- culture, only in the sense that it's manipulated. So you have, and not the culture, but you know, the movies are created to manipulate culture, as opposed to culture actually. So somebody taking ideas that they see every day and then putting that in the movies, which in some cases could be the case. But you know, with these movies, a lot of them, you know, are some of them, and a lot of them actually. There's one that's going to be a little bit more modern than I'm talking about tonight, but and there are other movies that have that sort of about the movie that's more recent. There are other movies that come out now or that are out there that have the same sort of premise, but this one is a little bit more notable for my discussion. And again, the movies I'm gonna bring up, I'm not gonna go like 110% as far as breaking down the movie itself, but I'm going to go over. I'm going to give you a brief synopsis, and then go over the points that reflect obviously my premise. Okay, just yeah, my dumbass not paying the bill on time. That for sure. I think led to the problem because there's no more skips or jumps or anything. So real quick, um, of course, this is beans and greens. So gotta before I go into the topic, I gotta go over what I'm drinking and what I'm smoking. Now, I stupidly didn't get the name of the bud, so for the next podcast, I'm gonna have the name and I'm gonna have a picture. And oh my god, again, I have victimized myself, if I could say that, with just not paying attention because you start smoking and you zooted, but the shit is so good that you smoke another one. And then time passes, and I'm sitting here working on stuff or watching YouTube videos or something, and then just light up another one. Next thing you know, I'm sitting on my couch just waking up 5 hours later, like, yo, what the fuck? This shit is. I think the last three bags I got from the connection, it just been. I mean, a couple of bags before that I could handle it. I could smoke, and a lot of times I'd have to smoke because you have a high tolerance, and even sometimes the good shit to make you have to. But these last three bags, it wasn't the tolerance. It was my sort of like the whole thing where people eat an edible and it doesn't kick in right away, and then you eat another edible, and then by the time the first one kicks in, then the second one kicks in, and then you're just done. This is a little bit like that, only sense that because you get zooted right away. That's the problem. Because I just need to chill and just enjoy it, and then. But no, this shit is. I mean, it looks it's coated. The buds are really dense, and it's coated with like orange and lime green. I mean, it looks. It's. I mean, oh, I'm definitely gonna put a picture up. I gotta say, that now the smell is conflicting because on one hand, it has like that lime. Well, I don't know if you can smell lime green, but it has like a green ish sort of smell to it. But then there's a hint of shit. Like, doesn't smell like shit in the sense that it smells bad. No, it smells literally like shit. I don't know. Do they fertilize it with shit? I don't know. It's a very conflicting smell, but yeesh. Yeah, I would I would say easily one of the best bags I've had in a while. I mean, the last couple of bags have been super good, but this one is. I'm gonna next podcast, which is gonna be Thursday, and hopefully before 12. This way, I'm actually doing it on Thursday. I don't know. I get started with other shit and just a little bit of lazy too. And again, like I said, I've been burning burning myself to a weed coma. All right, let's see. Now, now of course, there's that's the greens part. Beans, nothing too spectacular. Still drinking on Nescafe, which is my go-to. I haven't gone out and bought any different sort of off the wall coffees yet, but that's coming. So it's not much of a not much I can really say, but it's just and well, the good thing about this one, it's good and you can drink it black. You don't have to put sugar in. And I'm just trying to stay away from sugars. I'm not too successful, but there's no sense in drinking sugar with having sugar in coffee and then eating something sugary and there's so much sugar in just food and then like bread, shit like that. So this is good black. But now if it's like the other coffees, like the commercial stuff that you see, like the main stuff like Folgers or like Maxwell House, you gotta have like creamer or sugar and milk or whatever. This stuff is good just as it is black. Don't mean any sort of side inference by that, but yeah. Okay, so today's topic again is how movies, how you can see the imprint of these movies in today's society, how movies move or create social norms, um, and it's this one is very sort of like I said, it's kind of gory, kind of macabre. Um, doesn't necessarily mean anything that I say here is true, but I mean I've heard so much about it, and there's so many things you know that can lead you to believe that a lot of stuff that what I'm talking about is the case. So backstory. So I'd always been into conspiracy things. There was something I saw like a long time ago, back when I was coming up in Brooklyn. And I say that like old wives' tale, like I'm telling a story, like about the like everything's about the twist. This is some big cinematic fucking anyway. But I mean that's where I'm from. So now it was something at it was like a little church, but it wasn't like an actual church building. It was like in some sort of like a rundown sort of place, like right under that, like right over like this train station and shit, like a elevated train. I mean, it's like a storefront, and I remember this particularly because the stuff they were talking about was really scary, and me, my age at that time, thinking about the stuff, I'm like, a lot of stuff is just a lot of these when I mean like conspiracy talking about um the whole thing about the end times and all of the biblical conspiracies around the I think it's the rapture and all that shit and basically things that were actually going on right now. So that's sort of the scary part to sort of think about from back then. So anyway, you know, go a few years, and this is now I'm in my 30s, and we started watching. I started really getting into like conspiracy videos and things like that. And at that time, I stopped watching TV, stopped watching cable, and I was doing a lot. What they now, which really became big now, which is streaming, because I was watching a lot of YouTube videos, basically same how I do now, like it's television really. And then even then, when Hulu first came out, that was around the time when Hulu first came out, before it was with Disney and all that stuff, this was how I'd watch any of the TV shows. So I was basically streaming before even streaming was a thing. And they had all these different like underground channels and shit like that where you could stream movies, and that's what I mean. I was doing a lot of different streaming, but it was always watching these conspiracy videos. And there was one fella, um, he was of the tribe, and he was talking about what they do to people, right? And talking about harvesting organs and this, that, the other, and the stuff that, which this is stuff that we've heard a lot about, and there are a lot of movies in regards to that. But the one thing that was sort of really telling and was even more egregious on top of the fact that they're taking these bodies and harvesting organs, um, was that what would they do with these bodies afterwards? Because obviously a person's no longer with us, and there were organs and the major things that they need for the body to run is no longer with them. So now what? Well, according to the fella, you know, I mean, you know, it was said that you know these body parts are ground up and put into the food supply, most notably fast food. I'm not gonna name names. I'm not gonna say any specifics. I don't know if it was specifically one fast food takeout place, but fast food place, but it was put into the food supply. So I mean that implication is really wild. And again, this is all conspiracy stuff. So not saying this shit actually happened, but I've heard it. I again a few days ago. I'm not going to name the source because again I don't really name sources as far as like other people's podcasts. I mean, I can, and I guess sometimes people would want me to name sources if it ever comes in. But then again, the thing is, with my whole conspiracy shtick and basically dealing with the herbals and all this stuff, a lot of these people that I'm talking about, they have legitimate you know channels and stuff like that. So I don't want necessarily my stuff associated with it and put a stain on it. So just again, this is just me shooting the shit. So believe it or not, whatever. But the person I've heard it again from now is somebody who's more of a scholar type, somebody who one thing that this person that does is it tells you based off of knowledge. It's just knowledge. I don't really know specifically where it comes from because it could be you know an agent. I doubt that, but then again, I don't really put it past. But as a person who's really well versed in the mystery schools, but from the black perspective, as opposed to like a Mason or one of these other sort of mystery schools out there. This one's more from that perspective. So even this person brings it up how he's talking about even and the discussion came up in regards to eating meat, which is something I struggle with because I understand the implications of eating meat, and I really like. I mainly eat chicken. I really rarely ever eat beef or pork or anything like that. And don't get me started with the friggin' biblical meats like lamb, um, or the goat. You know what I'm saying? Nothing biblical, nothing rodent. You know what I mean? I know. I remember watching Bizarre Foods, and he's somewhere in like South America, and they're giving him a plate. It's like rice and like some great vegetables, and then the meat is capybara. Yeah, nah. So yeah, just basically chicken, once in a blue moon turkey, once in a blue moon some bacon. You know, same thing with a hamburger. I'm not a big hamburger eater. Yeah, so definitely. You know what? I don't need that anymore. All right, so the movies, and there are a bunch. There were a bunch of movies, but give me 1 second. I'm gonna bring it up. Okay, so there were a bunch of movies that this is the premise, and not even so much just the eating people part, but that's there. So one of the first movies, and this movie goes way back. I mean, let's see. Let me bring it up again. I had it. Yeah, I mean 1973, and it's so crazy because the movie itself. Okay, so let me go into this a little bit in a different way. So the movie is in 1973, and it's set in basically the time frame that we're in now. It's the year 2022 that the movie's set in, right? And here's the synopsis. I'm not gonna give you the name just yet, but synopsis of the movie, and let's see if this rings a bell. Say overpopulation, pollution, and resource depletion have made Earth nearly uninhabitable. So, like, this is 1973, and this movie is showing these seeds of overpopulation, pollution, and of course the resource depletion. And if you see the scenes in the movie, it's. I mean, and you see the scenes now, and the reason why this is so apropos, especially for even what's going on now with the whole food stamp stuff. You see a lot of people in bread lines, and in this case, it isn't a bread line. It's the name of the movie is Soylent Green. So, 1973, this movie comes out, and again, it tells of a time that basically we're living in. And what's so scary about the movie is, like I said, is you can see what's portrayed in this movie actually playing out in real life. And again, like I said, the reason why I feel like you know movies are manipulated to influence culture or influence social norms or influence um, social outcomes in a sense, outcomes from things that have happened obviously for previous times. This is 1973. We're in 2025 now. This whole notion of movies are just entertainment. I just have a hard time dealing with that because again, this it even scenes from the movie, and I watched it. I really only watched it one time. I know the whole synopsis about it, and I really I'll go over. because I mean there is a sort of a there is the actual plot of the movie, but then there's a subplot. So now Charlton Heston, he's a detective, right? And he's investigating the murder of this wealthy executive from the Soylent Corporation. Now, what does the Soylent Corporation do? They create these food wafers because again, in this time frame, the resources have been depleted, and there's no I guess there's no way for them to make food, and they don't have the things to make food, like grains and vegetables, and they're not growing stuff, and like they said, the land, Earth is uninhabitable, and it's primarily because of overpopulation, pollution. So they created these wafers, and they give them nutrients and shit like that, and it's just food. Now, even at this point, that stuff is almost gone in this movie, and I think that's where the murder of the executive comes in. So I'm not going to go over, like I said, this is not a breakdown, but going into the premise of the movie, or going into the premise of the discussion, what ends up happening is through his investigation, he finds out what are in these green wafers. And this brings about the famous line. I don't know if it's so brought up now, but one of the famous lines is Soylent Green is people. And what it turned out was, in order for them to create these green wafers that they were feeding to the people, they were using people to make this shit. Now again, like I said, two two fellas that I've heard, independent of each other, two different sides of the spectrum. One was black, one was not. One was of a different religion than the other one. One was of not necessarily religion, but of a spirituality. Said the same thing. One damn near 20 years ago, one a couple of days ago, saying this. And then there's this movie from 1973. I mean, we can, there's there's a lot of cognitive dissonance when it comes to a lot of things that comes out in these conspiracy, um, whether it's movies, discussions, documentaries. There's a lot of public cognitive dissonance. Blah, I don't know why I can't say that, but as I get older, you see these things happening. I mean, you could go back and watch a lot of old Alex Jones documentaries, right? And for whatever people think of somebody like Alex Jones, and rightly so, they've actually buffooned him. They made a buffoon of this man. He just pretty much did it himself, And I guess because after you tell so much truth, how do you discredit what the truth that you told is you make a buffoon of the truth teller, and even back then he was still buffoonish, but a lot of stuff that you see in the documentaries that he put out is actually happening. So now you have what they do with the bodies. Once they've ripped out and used the parts of the bodies that they need, right? Which, I mean, I guess it makes sense. I'm not against it in the sense that if you're no longer with us and you have the ability to help a person even after your passing by way of donating I mean, I'm so for that, but the incentive there, based off of this fucked up world that we lived in, the incentive is very strong to just go out and just jig a bunch of motherfuckers, and too bad, so sad, you're gone, and nobody gives a fuck. Because a lot of times they come from the parts of society that people don't give a fuck about, and people are so desperate to extend their life. People are so desperate to, I don't know what it is. It's because, I mean, what is it? Like for me, you know, I'm working hard. I mean, it may not reflect in my physique. you know, I'm busting my ass trying to lose weight. That's part of what I'm dealing with certain health issues I'm dealing with. And for me, it's not like a matter of like I can extend my life beyond what I'm going to live, but at least in that time, and I'm still here, I'm trying to right some wrongs that I did to my body and try to be more comfortable and live a little bit better of a life, a little bit more full of a life than I have in a few years dealing with health problems, and a lot of these health problems are, they're they're really fucked up. I'm not even gonna front, but the point being is, you know, I never think of like I'm doing these things, taking I gotta take a lot of medicine, and as well as working out, which I believe, even though I haven't lost a lot of weight, I'm getting a lot of muscle. I'm really bulking up in that regard, but I'm not losing nothing in my stomach, which is crazy. But either way, never a thought in my mind is this is going to make me live longer, or I'm obsessed with living longer. If something goes bad, I need a replacement so I can live longer. It's just, again, I understand that, you only have a certain amount of time. So the idea, again, like I said, is to be more, which for a large part of my life, it was very, very uncomfortable in this body. And the last few years, I've gained a little bit of comfortability. But anyway, I digress. What we see with a lot of wealthy and well-to-do people, of course, they just want to extend their lives beyond what it was allotted to them in this time frame. I believe, the time frame is I don't know necessarily say that you have a destiny or anything like that, but you aren't allotted a certain amount of time, and you want to do within that time frame. And at least I wish I learned this when I was younger, because you it's not just about living good as far as all the finer things in life. It's also how you treat yourself, obviously physically, spiritually, emotionally, all these different things. They all lead to a healthy life. So we have a lot of wealthy, well-to-do people. They can't really, I mean, you can't, a lot of things that these people have done, it's, I mean, I just believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but there's sort of a sort of a karma to that affects them, because it's how these people do things. Okay, so back to the main premise, right? How the bodies get to the point where they now become Soylent Green, or in our case, the patty, the hamburger you got from your local, your fast food chain, right? How they got there is not always from the conventional. The person got shot up, or the person was in this conflict, or got an accident. A lot of times those type of things damages the main things that these people need. So somebody gets shot in the heart, and they needed a heart. Not always the case, but so again, you can make an inference on what I'm saying. So a lot of people go missing, and they're never heard from again. So essentially, my premise, and I'm just gonna say it, fuck it, just again, is it happening? Who knows? But like I said, a lot of people go missing, and the whole deal is, my whole premise is, a lot of these people go missing because they're actually snuffed out in order to be able to harvest their organs and all the parts and the bits and bobs that are actually needed for these wealthy individuals in order to extend their life, in order for them to enjoy their wealth and just extend their life just because they can try. Then now you have all these different bodies. What do they do with these bodies? These bodies become Soylent Green. Or, like I said, in the case of our times that we're dealing with now, that burger you bite into, that you just went up to a window and ordered it, and they sent you the burger through. Soylent Green is people. Again, I'm full of shit, so I could be wrong. So I know, me personally, one of the things that I've done trying to get this body back into some sort of health. Again, the results, it hasn't showed up, but I'm still working regardless. Um, I I I once in a blue moon eat fast food, and the only thing I really like, there's like a couple of things, but it's like some breakfast items, and you know, the big thing is my cheesy tots from Burger King. That shit used to be my shit back in the day, because being a smoker, you can smoke out and then go get some of them cheesy tots. But that's not meat. So, but like burgers and all these different, I haven't done it for years. So now, of course, that literally always is in the back of my mind when it comes to eating fast food. It has always been in the back of my mind since I first started hearing about that. So I'm always suspect about it. Even just buying regular meat in like the grocery store, it's always suspicious to me. So now, another thing that we see too, and there's been like there's like a TV show about this next part. There was another movie, right? Now, let me bring up the image for this one. All right. Okay. So now this next movie is something similar, um, in regards to using bodies of other people that are healthy in order to extend their life, because that's essentially what happens in sort of the previous example is people harvesting body parts, but there's also even the idea that harvesting another person's body in order to, again, extend your life and live, and now essentially in a newer body that works well. Now, one of the things that I've noticed, again, with my health issues, a lot of times the body can feel like you're trapped in it, because you have to deal with these problems. And yeah, it's nothing like being, anyway, I don't even want to go into that. But so this next movie, And again, this is something again that's being played out today that we're dealing with. One, this movie deals with sort of a sub thing about race. Of course, that's always something we're confronted with. But one of the things in regards to that is, of course, we're always being sort of portrayed as spiritually and at least as far as socially, um, as being sort of the bottom tier of society. But physically and genetically, you know, at the very top of things. So the movie I'm talking about is Get Out. Okay, so now this is the other side of it. And this is a movie that came out in more recent times. And I can't really say that I see specific examples in actual life, but this is something that we know as far as at least being able to take your consciousness, conscience, consciousness, and transporting it to something else, something like a computer, or in this case of the movie Get Out, into another body. So obviously, if you've seen this movie, you understand that one of the things how race is sort of played into it is because obviously the lead is a black guy, and he has this white girlfriend, and in going to visit this girlfriend, he meets their family, but there's always these suspicious people, you know, and suspicious black people that were that he noticed when he would go to visit as he's visiting. So, not gonna again go through totally what's going on in the movie, like a breakdown. There's so many things you can go, places you can go and see a breakdown of the movie. But one of the things that you do, or what supports my premise, sort of the other side of things is, what was happening was these people who were basically trapped in their bodies for whatever. One person was paralyzed. There was other few different afflictions that were, I mean, these were things that were very debilitating to these people. And what they were able to do is actually take their consciousness and transfer it into the bodies of these other people. And they chose strong, uh, young, strong black men, people. Now, I mean, this is the whole other side to it, because this is all this is about is life extension. So with the other movie Soylent Green, it wasn't just about. I mean, this is an underlying thing, because what were they doing to get these bodies in order to create the Soylent Green? You know, and you understand that in order to harvest these bits and bobs, these body parts, I call them bits and bobs. I watch a lot of shit from England, so but not to minimize the fact that we're talking about body parts. But in order to harvest it, you have to, you have to actually snuff these people out. And this is just another example of what we see. Now, of course, the people that were transferring their essence, their soul, their whole whole consciousness into these other younger black people's bodies. They weren't really shown to be really super wealthy, but we understand that the white in it was, the white people, that was that was code for the rich and the wealthy because only those type of people would have the ability to do such things, if at all possible. I mean, this shit is diabolical. And again, this is one of those things, like I said, where again, I'm just shooting the shit, just throwing it out there. I mean, the whole thought behind extending one's life. I mean, there's so much behind this, because then there's genetics. We're talking about genetics. We're talking about um, classism, racism. We're talking about just a whole. It. I mean, this discussion could go on forever. That's basically what I'm saying. There's so much behind that. Now, my whole goal here, again, is just shooting the shit, but also it's just a journey for myself to be able to see what's going on. Now, again, in the instance of this the movie Get Out, you don't necessarily see that right now, so that seems legitimate. I, of course, have some conspiracies on that as well, where I do feel like said person isn't what or isn't who we thought said person is. You see so much of that out there, and and I say some people go out there and go out there and look it up. Now, there was another movie similar to Get Out, in a sense where you have and sort of that whole theme of rich and wealthy using harvesting body parts and whole bodies from another person, transferring their conscience in order to extend their life. There's one called The Island, and it's with Ewan McGregor, and what they did was they made clones of the actual people, the clones of specific people, like I said, these rich people or whatever, and they had these clones. They grew them up. These clones now they had their own consciousness. They were their own people, independent of their host or where they got the person they got their clone they're from. Now the idea of creating these clones is that if the original person has some sort of debilitating disease, or like needs an organ, they have an exact clone of themselves, so they can use this clone to harvest. But again, these clones, they had their own lives. Did not know They did not know that they were clones, but what they knew was the lives that they were leading. So what happens is, one of the people who is sent out to be harvest for the donor, you know, upon realizing, hey, I'm about to get cut the fuck up, escapes the operating room and starts trying to alert the other people. That's when Ewan McGregor, as a matter of fact, starts going through and he finds out, sees what's going on, and the one thing that's displayed is true human spirit. Once they understand you are being imprisoned, you want to you want to fight your way out of that prison. You want to leave that prison. You want to break out of that prison. And even in this movie, that whole idea is being displayed. And so the whole thing is how to get out of this place that's designed to keep you in as sort of a cattle. And of course, the whole premise behind that is he escapes and he actually meets his donor, which looks like him because it is basically him, and that original donor sick, and I don't remember exactly. I think he does die, but the character who leaves the island, this prison, he somehow gets to move on. But the whole thing is, again, usage of human bodies as a sort of life extension technology, sort of basically harvesting us as cattle for that. And again, I think it was maybe a subtle hint that, or at least something I can myself draw from knowing what's going on from Silent Green, not Silent Soylent Green. That what were they using? Why were they having so many bodies? What were they doing to the bodies in order for them to create the Soylent Green? And knowing rich and powerful, they were harvesting, things like simple eyeballs, hearts, obviously, livers, kidneys, all these things. Even I think even limbs. To tell you the truth, I think they even have it now where I wonder if they do that shit with dicks. Implant another joint, somebody else's joint that's much bigger. You know what I'm saying? Of course, it's going to be usually a different color. And then diet. I don't know. This is stupid. I don't know if it usually be a different color because I don't know. You've seen some of them nudie movies. They got some big dicks in every sort of nomination. So yeah. Anyway, so that's discussion for this week. Soylent Green, Get Out, and honorable mention The Island. Totally check those movies out. Of course, you want to make sure you're rolled up while you're doing it. You know what I'm saying? Smoke a nice fatty and then watch these movies. And just think about what I said. You'll start seeing it. And I don't know, maybe whoever watched this maybe not want to eat fast food anymore because Soylent Green is people. The day is long, the sun is hot. You might as well smoke.